Pat Olson alongside Jim Bravelli. Don's on the road here in Fullerton this afternoon to take on the Titans. You know, Jim, the Dons, those first 10 games, they come kind of quickly. That's how the way the schedule works every year, because you got to get some games in before you get to the little break for final exams. So the Dons 8-2 through those 10 ball games. A nice start for Todd Golden's team.
It really is, Pat. I'll tell you, when you look at this team and what Todd has done with him, with this group, you know, they're very consistent through 10 games. They're 8-2, as you say. Played some very good games. But what I like about this team is that's consistent game in and game out. They haven't been up some games or down some games. They've been pretty solid. They know their roles. The starters know their roles. The reserves come in and know their roles, and they all contribute as one. And that's why they're 8-2. And it's a pretty good schedule here in the first 10 games.
Yeah, the last game was against Cal, and that could have been a tough game for USF in the sense that the Dons played the night before against a good Arizona State team. Played well, just didn't get a couple breaks to go their way. They lose by 4, and that's one that you could walk out the next night with your head kind of hanging down. But that USF team was ready the next night against Cal, and they beat the Bears on a back-to-back.
They sure were, Pat. And I'll tell you, they lost by 4, but they could have won that game. The last minute of play, it's a tie game. Could have gone either way down the end, and you know, Arizona State wins. But what I like what Todd did after that game, he didn't let the team kind of you know, worry about that loss too much. They talked about the next night and just personnel and get ready, you know, the next night. So it was put in the mind already who they're playing as opposed to looking at a loss, which I think is really great, because now that's great preparation before you take that sleep and you wake up the next day. So they're ready to go. So a really great win on that back-to-back game.
And so now the Dons come off a 10-day layoff, Jim, and I know final exams, obviously they're student athletes, but at the same time, as a coach, you want to try and, you know, keep your guys fresh. So what do you expect to see from this USF team as they hit the floor here today at 2 o'clock?
Well, watching practice yesterday, they're ready to go. I'll tell you, they were sharp and crisp and in it together. In fact, they probably have a lot of built-in energy right now, being locked in a room and studying for a week. So now they're ready to go, and that was a very good practice, and they're fresh and looking forward to it.
You know, this Fullerton team, they've struggled a little bit. They're not a big team, small, quick, athletic. So what do you see for the matchup here this afternoon?
Well, you know, I've always felt the same way. You know, worry about your own team. You know, they've been consistent playing that style of play. They force teams to play in their comfort zone, not the opponent's comfort zone, and I think that's really important, and that's what makes you play well. So it's, again, how are we going to play our style of play and forcing that tempo on our opponent, and that's what it'll be.
You know, Jim, it's coming up pretty quick. It seems to go fast. We got 5 more non-conference games, and then you open up West Coast Conference play against St. Mary's. Are we at the point where now it becomes kind of, I guess, more realistic to start to look at what some of the other WCC teams have done? Because there's a lot of teams with some pretty good records now. This league's going to be, we say this a lot, it seems, every year, but this league's going to be tough. It's
going to be really tough. Well, you know, I've seen Gonzaga just on TV, not in person, but they've got a different team, a totally different team, really, a different front line, different guards, but they're playing very, very well. And you've got BYU with Childs now starting to play a week ago. So they played a very tough schedule. And of course, St. Mary's has everybody back, and those are your top 3. And you know, the bottom level's coming up a little bit. You know, USF is right there, and Santa Clara's had a good record. You can go right down the line, so you better be ready to go. But I think this month here, just in December, right prior to the conference, will give us a good barometer as to where we are. You know, you got today's game on the road, you've got at Stanford on the road, you got at Fresno. So we've got some tough games ahead here, and Harvard probably picked to win the Ivy League. So a lot of tough games before that first conference game against St. Mary's. So team's looking forward to it. I'm sure Todd's looking forward to it. And we're looking forward to it for sure, right?
It's going to be a lot of fun, yeah?
Yeah, so it's going to be really exciting this month.
All right, Dons against Fullerton this afternoon, 2 p.m. for the tip-off. You can catch the broadcast on the radio side. Jim and I will be along at 1:45 with the pregame on KNBR 1050. Next to Jim Bravelli, Pat Olson on USFDons.com.